Hey, pleased to be checking back in with State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy for another Tacky Talk. It's been a little while. How you doing, Tacky?
It's been a little while, Joe. It's great to see you on this cloudy Wednesday morning.
I know I didn't recognize you at first because of your new do.
Well, we spent a whole year together watching my hair grow for 6 months at a time between cuts. So I got a cut within 2 months for a change. And as you can tell, we've gone
Very
to a bit
nice.
of a summer cut. But in 2 weeks, I promise to be shaggy again.
Okay, now that's good. Then I'll know who you are again. Actually, a whole lot has happened since we last chatted at the state level. We were talking about it before we started interviewing this morning. Sports betting, the budget, of course. The Delta variant is now making news here in Massachusetts, and there's been some changes for voting.
Yeah, it's been a very busy month in July. And actually, we do have a phone session today. Again, we're doing it by remote and the phone. So, literally, you guys are getting me right before I go into a session at home. But no, it's been very busy. And mail in voting has been a real priority for folks, especially with municipal elections coming up, especially those with preliminary elections coming in September, to have a go at it. And mail-in voting, by all accounts, has been very successful in Massachusetts. There has been very little problems in implementing it for the first time. Having done a second time should go very smoothly, since, for lack of a better term, they got the kinks out the first time. And we were able to agree on allowing continuation of the current mail-in voting process to the end of 2020. We're still at 2021. We're 2021. Yes, time is still all the same in my brain. I know, to the end of this year in 2021. So we
Yeah.
are going to allow mail-in voting, and we'll reevaluate the issue as we go into the winter months
Okay.
prior to the town elections. For those who are from towns, knows that town elections occur in the springtime. So, we'll see how the fall elections go to reevaluate. But this has huge implications for Quincy elections. There's a preliminary nomination papers were due yesterday's in Quincy. Boston obviously has a very active mayor's race with a big preliminary. Lynn has a big race going on as well as all the down ticket races of the city councils and the school committees in different cities. So while I know there is no mayor's race in Quincy this year, it will impact at least the school committee race, which does appear to have a preliminary. I believe there's 7 candidates, need to get down to 6. And obviously there's going to be at least 5 candidates running for a large that will be in the final election in November. And I believe there's going to be races in Ward 1 and Ward 2.
And 5 also.
And so it will impact those locations.
Does that mean the state is going to pay for mail-in voting again?
I think that the topic is going to be discussed as we go along. Right now, we're not planning to pay for this election. It is a local election, not a state and federal election. So it was a very logical course for us to pick up those costs, especially when it was, quite frankly, sprung on seasoned clerks suddenly, for lack of a better term. I mean, it was pandemic. None of us knew what was really going on. We had suspended all the rules about town meeting elections in the spring very quickly last year, and actually delayed town meetings. As well as delayed local town elections last year. We actually authorized emergency delay for many small towns, which they had to push their elections into September, while they were trying to do a mail-in ballot at the same time. So
Right.
it was, I'll be honest, it was complete chaos. Unfortunately, we live in Quincy, so we don't have to deal with spring elections, but the majority of communities in the state have spring elections. So you can all figure out, if you didn't have your election in early March and you were having an election in April, COVID pandemic 1 was crazed, and I know places like Dedham was trying to have an election, in the April period, and nobody knew what was going on. So I mean, I know that, like, my friend from Saugus and my friend Donald Wong, who's a rep from Saugus, had their election delayed a little bit of time while they're waiting for mail-in ballots and state guidance about how to handle these type of small town elections. So living in Quincy, we don't have to deal with these things, but, obviously I don't represent a town. But at the same time, though, I do have to think about this stuff as a member of the legislature.
Well, you're voting on it, so yeah.
Yeah, and also the concerns of my colleagues who do represent this community. So I think people kind of forget that I don't just niche in, it's a Quincy only issue. I don't have to worry about it, doesn't affect me. Well, that's not true.
Yeah.
you know, I do have to take into consideration my colleagues' issues around me on their local things that we don't have to deal with.
And vice versa, right?
Oh, absolutely. They
Yeah.
do think about things that impact the city and, take consideration of whether they're going to vote for something, not because it doesn't affect them, but because it affects somebody else. So,
Right.
this is kind of one of the part of the jobs that I think people don't really consider because they think I just worry about this little part of Quincy and I don't think about the rest of the road. That's not true. And mail-in ballots is one of those examples, as we had to learn about, well, what's going on somewhere else and what can we do to help them.
Yeah. Do you think it'll become permanent in the future, Jackie?
I think at some point it will. I think people really do like this expansion of the ability to vote. Our lives are busy. I don't know how else to put this to people. I mean, people are having more than one job. Pandemic clearly showed how many people in the workforce work all kinds of hours. Essential employees, and people even with remote learning at home, and some families are still struggling about whether to go to a hybrid model or send their kids to school. I mean, there's still a lot of discussions in people's homes about what do they want to do down the road. And mail-in voting has shown that in an increasingly busy world, voting access becomes more important.
Sure. And obviously, when there is a health crisis, safety is an issue too. And also, here in New England, weather can be an issue, particularly in November elections.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I have seen some 70-degree a day weather and still see a remarkably low turnout.
That's right.
So, and I've campaigned in the Martha Coakley winter election, which I keep repeating to everybody, I'm never running a winter campaign again. But I remember that January on the final election against Scott Brown, it was a light snow in Eastern Mass, which means in Western Mass, it was snowing a little more than it was on the East side. I mean, there's all those other factors. And I mean, but also there's people plan their lives a little better through mail-in ballots. So you can, if you want to have that medical procedure, you don't want to deal with trying to figure out an absentee ballot, you want to, vote early or mail-in ballot. Planning that trip, you have that, sudden change in emergency plans. At least you got your ballot in early, so you don't have to worry about it. I mean, it creates a lot of options for folks, specifically of unforeseen situations. You point out, it doesn't have to be a pandemic, but if you get your mail-in ballot and you suddenly find yourself in a medical crisis or a family crisis around election day period, at least you voted.
Yeah. Do you think it'll ever progress to online voting?
This was actually tried in the state of Oregon.
Oh,
I know tacky trivia comes up.
That's why I love talking to you, Tacky, because I learn all kinds of new stuff every time.
Yeah, they did that about a dozen years ago or more, and it needs work.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's safe. I mean, safety and hacking would be my major concern. I'm sure it's theirs too.
Yeah, they have. It was very primitive technology compared to now. I'm trying to remember which European country, but there is a European country that does do electronic everything. They do encrypted identification, which means that you have a government identification that's encrypted, that has a reader. When you go, they'll give you a reader, and then it has to read it. Now it accesses everything. You can file your taxes with it. You can do like all your government services with this encrypted code, including voting.
Interesting.
I cannot remember the country off the top of my head right now, but it's actually a very small country. I think it's a very small country.
It's Liechtenstein or something, Yeah,
it's less than the population of Massachusetts.
Oh, all right. Okay.
But I mean, they decided to do a uniform, secure, encrypted system where you can file your taxes online, you can pay your bills online, you can check your government resource online. If you're on government healthcare, you can check all your stuff there. It's a single portal system. They spend a lot of money on, but the key part is that you have an encrypted code on your government identification card that with a specific reader that allows you to access the system. And you're right, cybersecurity is actually a huge issue for them. So that so if we're going to go the direction on online voting, the investment in technology is going to be enormous. And with this country, next time I will find the country and tell you what it is.
Okay.
Did a major investment because they decided to uniform their entire government programs into one system.
Interesting. Okay. Something else that's changed since last we chatted: sports betting has been approved.
Yeah, round two for sports betting.
Yeah.
We did this late last fall, and we're back again to do another bill, which is actually not that different from the one we passed before. There are some changes, but mostly the same. I mean, it creates three types of licenses: one for casinos, one for essentially racetracks slash simulcasting parlors, racetracks, and then mobile betting.
Oh,
And
really? I
then
didn't know about the mobile betting part. Okay.
yeah, it's a third type of license, and then the taxation structure, which isn't a tax structure, because that's not an accurate term. It's really a takeout. So, every dollar wagered, the state will take 12.5% or $12,
Oh,
12.5 cents
okay.
every
So,
live bet, mean bet in person, and 15 cents on the dollar for every mobile bet.
okay.
So the state will take that as of each wager. That's why it's really not a tax; it's a takeout structure. It takes out of the wager, hence
Yeah.
takeout.
Well, it's a tax on the people who are gambling, basically.
Yeah, essentially, and then what the remainder goes into the operator, and then we still can tax the operator again as a business
Oh,
tax.
okay.
So it's a weird. It's every wage is almost a dual tax system. You get
I see.
money taken out in the front, and then we still tax the business itself at the other end.
Yep.
But they can't. But since it's wagering, they can't raise the prices on it.
Gotcha. Okay.
'Cause your
And
bet is your bet is your bet,
yeah,
right?
right. Yeah. So they can't basically pass the cost on to the gambler. They have to absorb that.
They absorb that, and given the volume of wagering that can occur, that the numbers could get pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I do think the state's numbers are probably a little low at $60 million in profit for us, but
Wow.
I think that may be low once we go to full blown, because it's not just professional, but it includes collegiate,
Yes.
and it has a very broad definition of professional sports.
Okay.
So basically, any two people competing for something that is in a professional level
Yeah.
could be wagered on. Which you can make an argument that video game competition, for example, which is becoming a big thing globally,
Yeah.
but it could be considered a wagered item.
Okay.
If it's done at a professional level, like these guys get paid to do this for a living, professional
Yep.
level.
Yep. Yep. Beach volleyball or something.
No, no, you're right. Another example of that would be, let me think here. Professional eating contest.
Oh, okay. I don't know
Right?
if I bet on that, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can't bet on like how many hot dogs you can consume, but you can bet strictly on who's going to win.
Who's gonna win? Okay, I get you.
So
How
you can't play those things in Vegas where you can bet on someone taking penalties, for example.
Okay, all right. How does the mobile work? Is there an app that's gonna happen, or how does that work? Taking.
Oh, they're already out there. I mean, we
Oh,
already
okay.
see the FanDuels and all the other fantasy sports apps. So it's not going to be a huge leap
Oh, all right.
for
Okay.
betting. We just want to be sure that they have a similar program like they do in other states where it's all IP address driven. They have identification, verification of persons' accounts. All the other safeguards you have regarding mobile type
Yeah,
usage.
yeah. How do you
So,
guarantee that minors won't use it?
well, there is no absolute guarantee. The
Okay.
best we can do is to require proper identification and tie the IP addresses to inside the state,
Okay.
and that's the best we. It's like the whole thing about alcohol delivery. It's the
Yeah.
same problem.
Yeah.
So there's
Okay.
only so much controls we can have, and we have to rely on the operators that have the licenses at risk to put all the proper safeguards in, or they're going to lose the license.
Okay.
And
Okay.
standard review for mobile betting and the in live sports betting is the same review process as getting a casino license. And the fee to get a license is $5 million.
Ooh. Now, does the revenue funnel to any specific area?
Well, the fees go back to pay for its own regulation.
Okay.
So it's not a taxpayer-driven regulatory industry. The operators would have to actually pay the gaming commission to regulate. The money collected from the 12.5 cents and 15 cents each dollar wager we collect actually funnels into specific locations. So we have a huge workforce development trust fund. That is what it sounds like. It's designed to try to help people transition in the modern economy and people take advantage of opportunities.
Mhm.
So 40% goes in there. 33% goes into local aid. So the cities and towns would be happy to hear about that. More money from us that you can do what you want with. About 20% of that goes to a youth assistance program for scholarships and youth at risk. We have about 6% goes to public health trust fund. And people think, well, why 6%? Well, if you look at the casino gaming side, they got a lot more over there than the other funds. And we have a whole lot of healthcare COVID money right now. So, the public health trust fund is actually pretty flush. And then we have 1% going to this very peculiar player benevolent fund, and allows the professional sports teams to advise on this 1% of the money going to various charitable organizations.
Okay. All right. Is this modeled after any other states that are already doing this? I know many of our neighboring states already have it in place.
Yeah, it's not too different from Rhode Island or Connecticut or New Jersey or other states. It's all relatively the same in principle. The major differences is really the regulatory structures. So our bill mimics our own casino gaming law already in terms of review processes, which mimics, oddly enough, places like New Jersey. So there's a relatively uniform, I'm not saying 100%, but I mean relatively similar process in all states regarding gambling review. So you're not going to find like major deviations. Like, for example, controlling interest. We want to know who the controlling interest in the business is. Every state wants to know the controlling interest in the business.
Sure, yeah.
So there isn't major variations in the sense. There may be some nuances specifically to your state, but in terms of like overall application review process, it's relatively similar.
Yeah. And think the governor's going to sign it, or did he sign it yet?
Well, it's sitting in the Senate. Like last time out, we got it out of the House and it was sitting in the Senate. I talked to a couple of friends over in the Senate, and they are still having a very active discussion, trying to determine, what is the compromise position of the Senate among the senators themselves. So it is an active conversation going over there, and the House, feels that there is a good chance that the senators will reach an agreement among themselves that will result in the bill going to us into a conference committee. So at this stage of the game, when people want to have sports betting, you shouldn't be too concerned about what's in the Senate bill, just as long as it's a Senate bill coming out.
Gotcha.
The conference committee will resolve the differences.
Okay, very good. Any more talk about the millionaire tax recently on Beacon Hill?
No, it's going on the ballot in 2022. So at this point, there's really no conversation to be had. The voters will have a chance in November 2022 to vote for the Constitution. It's a constitutional change, everyone. So this is a much more difficult to do than passing a ballot initiative law to create a two-tiered system tax. Massachusetts is a flat tax system that you get people in the same class, same category, which the Supreme Court has ruled many times what different categories of people are, pay the same tax rate. This constitutional change is required if you want to have income tax rate to be tiered. And you would add 4% to the people who make every dollar over $1,001,001 to be taxed at a higher rate. So, the money would be dedicated to transportation and education programs. So people can make that decision next November.
All right, stay tuned for that for sure. Looking forward. Sales tax holiday. It just kind of like it exploded and died.
Yeah, you notice how the governor dropped that little bomb on us because it was upset about our COVID, not giving them COVID money. And
yeah, we can talk about that too, but yeah.
So it's still August the 14th and 15th.
Okay.
If like last year, people don't want to feel like being crowded in the store, definitely go online and pre-order and schedule for pickup. I did that last time during COVID. I didn't order a lot, but I ordered a couple of things and scheduled for pickup or delivery. Myself. So people are feeling a little hesitant about this massive crush of people on that weekend. I do advise that get up that morning on the 14th and 15th and find a local business you can order online.
There you go. But the month-long thing, not so much.
2-month-long thing.
Oh, that's right. It was 2 months.
2 months.
That's right.
No, that's not happening.
Well, he was probably hoping you could negotiate down to 1 month.
That's not happening.
Okay.
Not a lot of not a lot of desire anywhere to actually go to 2 months.
Okay. Since we're talking about money, we have a state budget now.
We do did have a state budget. The state budget is somewhat larger than we originally voted for back in April, reflecting the increased revenue projections that we have as a result um, of stronger revenues than we ever thought we would, because driven by capital gains. So we were able to at least shore up a lot of our programs. Once again, put money into the rainy day fund. And preparing ourselves on basically COVID cost.
Yep.
And weathering hopefully not an economic downturn by shoring up the rainy day fund and other types of trust funds for programs. So the city did very well. I mean, we got a record number on education Chapter 70 funds because of our Educated Reform Act. We're able to get pretty much a very high number on local aid because the lottery has been the strongest since pre-pandemic. Massive lottery recovery, as well as general tax revenues that we put into local aid as well. So the city, now I can remember the numbers off the top of my head, which I'm going to cheat now, as you guys are see me looking down at my phone.
That's all right. We want accuracy. We don't mind if you remember it or not. We just want accuracy.
Well, me being accurate is always a question mark, but
well, approximate then.
Yeah, it's about $52 million in local aid to the city of Quincy. I mean, $31.8 million for education and $20.9 million, give or take a few thousand, for local aid to cities for the local aid city of Quincy can spend how it wants. And the city budget, I believe, is like $345 million.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, about $52 million of that is direct state aid. It doesn't include things like school meals. It doesn't include the library assistance. Doesn't include the senior center assistance. Doesn't include all this other government money that we provide to cities and towns. This is just strictly two forms of assistance that we do. So, I mean, that represents a $52 million plus out of the $340 million budget is pretty substantial.
Yep.
Obviously we got some local monies, right? We got money to Manatee Community Health Center. We got money to Bridge Resources, Germantown Neighborhood Center. Down in the Speakers District, he got money for the Paxton Park improvements and Ward 2 civic associations. We got overtime patrols again for Quincy Drive and Furnace Brook Parkway. That's large thanks to Bruce doing that hard work on that front. So, I mean, the city, made out pretty well on top of local aid, on top of the regular monies we get, and beyond the other grant programs the city applies for. Despite a lack of knowledge about what the financial future holds, we've done extremely well. And, let's be honest about it. Speaker Mariano, we should be doing okay for a while.
Yeah, I guess they have some influence up there with what Quincy gets, and probably Weymouth too, because part of his district is in Weymouth.
No, absolutely, and Holbrook.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah.
So you talk about town politics, right? So, yeah. I mean, let's not pretend it isn't there. I mean, Speaker Mariano is still Speaker Mariano.
Speaking of, any change in rules for opening the State House, or talk about that, Keith?
Yeah, we had passed House rules this month as well. We're operating under temporary rules to July 15th.
Yeah.
The new, rules have been finalized and will be effective October 1st, where we end temporary rules. For people wondering what rules are, it's basically the operations of the House. So we operate the internal function of the House through House rules. So it ranges from everything from a dress code in the chamber, to the human resource director assignment, and all the procedural stuff in the middle, regarding how you operate a session. So, and also formation of House-only committees, the so-called standing committees. People who went to school know this needs standing committees. So that people took politics classes like me. You have the joint committees and standing committees.
Okay.
So the House committees, we refer to as committees that stand on their own. So like Ways and Means is a standing committee, right?
Okay. Like Finance Committee for City Council, same kind of thing.
Same kind of idea, right? So, so whatever the House rules govern on operating of House committees is in the House rules. So one of the major changes this year, actually two major changes. The other ones are kind of more keeping up with the times changes. But the two major ones is one, to allow to require House committees to publish their votes on the website in aggregate, meaning that you have 22 votes in favor, and then you have 4 people against, for example. Very very simple aggregate counts.
Oh, instead of a breakdown individually, you mean?
Yeah, it's basically a box. It's a basically a final score, not a box up, not
Gotcha.
a box score. No
Okay.
box score, just a final score. And then the other change we made is we allowed a procedure to create emergency rules. Last session, we didn't have a procedure to create emergency rules, so we had to create emergency rules on the fly.
Right.
So now we actually will have a formal process in the House rules to create emergency rules in case of another state of emergency. It's very broadly written what the state of emergency is, because if it's a snowstorm is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to do emergency rules. But if there's another pandemic, or if there's a terrorist attack, or a devastating weather event, like a Katrina type situation, the House has the ability to create emergency rules to redo the House operations like quickly.
Okay.
Last year there was a lot of discussion among leadership and members about what emergency rules should look like during pandemic, because we didn't know how long, what was going on, what did we have to work with, and that took quite a bit of time and conversation to make something fit into our constitutional requirements of functionality.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, obviously the pandemic forced a lot of changes in a lot of different ways, and it's still doing it today now, with this most recent surge throughout the states. It's concerning, I'm sure.
Oh, it's extremely concerning. The Delta variant is 1,000 times more virulent than the original one in terms of, it's equal death ability, but in terms of like its kill rate, for lack of a better term. But it does have 1,000 times more contagiousness than the original COVID from, feels like a lifetime ago.
Doesn't it? I know, it's true.
It's okay,
you ever think you'd long for the days of the original COVID?
Yeah, I know. It sounds awful when you put it that way, doesn't it? You wish you had the one we actually know something about now.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's considered to be well over 50% more transmissible than the British Alpha variant. So, in case you're all wondering, the dominant strain in the U.S. is the British Alpha variant. And in recent months, the new dominant strain is now the Delta variant.
Right.
So you guys are probably wondering, how did the Beta and Epsilon and all those other letters? The answer is that those strains had not been nearly as robust in contagiousness as Alpha and Delta. Like, there's a California variant everyone forgot about already.
Mm-hmm.
That was very, I think mid last summer, Alpha variant in California made an appearance, but didn't have the transmissibility power as Alpha. And now there's a new one, Lambda, coming out of Peru. Again, it's very powerful, but not nearly as transmissible as Delta. And you're kind of thinking, well, why is that? Well, each variant appears in different parts of the world. It's all tied to vaccination rates, as people now come to realize that low vaccination rate causes more transmission, which causes more opportunity for mutation.
Mm-hmm.
So vaccination rates prevent spread, which prevents mutations, which prevents more dangerous versions of the virus.
It's quite literally a catch-22. It's a vicious cycle, that won't be broken unless the vaccination rates reach a certain point.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. Not every variation makes it more dangerous. It just means it's changed. Its ability to injure you is equal as the original SARS. It's that its ability to move through a population is faster, a lot faster than the original SARS. I'm saying SARS, COVID. It's a SARS. It's SARS-CoV-2.
It's a version of SARS, right? Exactly. You're not wrong. Yeah.
Yes, SARS-2 and all the other letters.
Correct. Yeah.
But it's a lot more dangerous because of the speed of transmission and the ability that it odds of you being exposed to the virus, odds go up that you can become infected. This was kind of the whole my talk like last spring was like the whole, hey, we don't know how, it's very infectious, you're around someone, the odds of catching it are 1.5 to 1 person. There's these are your odds now. I mean, now it's been magnified 1,000-fold. That the length of time you spend with an infected person it doesn't happen nearly as long as the
Right.
original version of COVID.
Yeah.
And
Or the 6 foot distance either. I don't think is much applicable this time around.
it may not be, because the longer someone's breathing on you, for lack of a better term, or breathing within breathing distance of each other more accurately as well, your odds start to improve that you can catch the infection.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that makes Delta very scary. And 99.9% or 99% or whatever, behind 90s percentage, depending on which news report you read. I mean,
Right.
I've seen 27, 99. I mean, it all changes, but I mean, they're all super predominantly people who never been vaccinated.
Right. Yep.
And the death rate right now on the Delta variant is super predominantly on people who are not vaccinated.
Yeah, and as I heard one doctor explain, the way the situation is right now, it's either you're going to get vaccinated or you're going to get the Delta variant. Those are your options.
Yeah, and again, I remind folks, people always talk, oh, it's a 2% ish, death rate from COVID. Well, yeah, but you ignore the serious hospitalization rate of well over 10 to 15%. So people, are playing the odds on not dying. Okay, we just talked about sports betting, right?
Yeah.
People want to play the odds against not getting, seriously ill.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that if you become one of 10 or one of 15, whatever, 10 or 15% of people who become seriously ill, we have the hospital system overrun. Again, Essex County during the most recent wave went over 100% capacity. The whole county ran out of hospital beds. Social Hospital had long periods where they were overrun. Boston hospitals proper Boston area, was sitting at 94 to 96% potential overrun.
Mm-hmm.
ICU beds at 90% capacity. People were at the DCU center. Okay, it wasn't like people were not using the Worcester DCU center. People were there. So, the idea is that if you don't get the Delta variant, you don't get COVID-19, you ensure the hospital system is not overrun. So, Lord forbid that you have a family member that has cancer, has a heart attack, has a stroke, has a car accident, whatever unforeseen or a comorbidity that you may have that you do regular treatment for, is able to access the hospital.
Right.
That is the thing I keep trying to remind folks. That's why these vaccines are so important. It ensures that you have a lower probability of finding yourself in a hospital because of COVID-19,
Mm-hmm.
and then somebody else who actually needs hospital services is able to get their hospital services.
Right, because if they can't, I mean, really, if they can't and they die, you can really attribute that to the pandemic and indirectly.
And you get greater exposure. Everybody doesn't like going to hospital because there's sick people. Like, of course, it's a hospital, right? But I mean, imagine now you got this very highly transmissible Delta variant in the hospital. You have a serious health issue. You can name any health issue, and now you're in a hospital, even though it's segregated because they do segregate the COVID and non-COVID section of the hospital. But you have a much higher transmission ability, and now you're inside a city. Generally, you're in the city that has a high transmission rate. Try and get to the hospital for a non-COVID related illness. Now you just added higher risk to those individuals needing that hospital access by yourself being infected.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
This is simple. I don't understand why this is so difficult for people to grasp sometimes.
It's unfortunate it's been so politicized, and I don't know the answer. I've seen some interviews where folks are hesitant because they say it was developed too quickly. They don't trust the science. They don't trust the government. They think the government's behind it.
Well, somebody is like everything else in life. Somebody was look, of all the people in my life, doing this business, everyone suddenly is an expert in politics.
Yes.
I've only been doing this my entire adult life, folks. I mean, not as long as Michael Morris. He's been doing this even longer than most people's adult lives. But now everyone's a medical expert, right? And this is kind of an interesting human phenomena. And I live with it the most because I'm in an occupation where everybody's an expert, right? So I'm just kind of used to it. But when it comes to medical stuff, no, everybody's not an expert. And we have a solution. It's called vaccination, and it's up to us to take care of each other. And it's kind of a funny phenomenon. People wouldn't think twice about running onto a street if someone was hit by a car in an accident. Although people have the cell phones, use the 911 function, folks, before you put on the video. I mean, just saying.
Right.
But people don't hesitate to jump out to help folks. But you get to this situation, it's not the same type of mentality, and people will run into traffic to save somebody. But not this type of scenario. It's just how people are. I mean, I just can't tell you why. It's just where people are.
Yeah. There is no explaining it. That's right. It's going to be interesting to see if one of the vaccines, I think Pfizer is applied to be approved for folks 12 and under. So that will change things.
I do expect one of the vaccines to be approved 12 and under sometime this fall. I really do. I heard there's a bit of a setback this week in the news because they didn't get a big enough sample of kids in their study. So FDA's and CDC sent them back saying, get a bigger sample and come back. So I thought they'd be ready by post Labor Day, but it looks like it'd be delayed a little bit because the FDA wants a bigger sample. But overall, vaccination rates up here are pretty good. I was looking the other day at vaccination rates, and the top 5 states, we take out the U.S. territories, the top 5 states that are highest vaccination rates is Vermont, followed by Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then the other remaining states are Maine, Vermont, and Connecticut are the 5 highest vaccinated states in the country. New Hampshire comes in 8th.
Okay, so in the top 10 still right here in the Northeast.
Yeah, and all of us are well over 60% vaccinated people. I mean, the number's a little weird because initially the number is based on people over age 18. Now it's everyone above age 12. But everybody over age 12 is well over 60% vaccination rate, which means everybody over 18 has got to be closer to the 70% zone.
Right.
So if you just take that above 18 group, it's about closing on 70%. So, geographically speaking, this area has very strong vaccination rates. And, I do believe that's going to continue forward. I know vaccination is slowing down, so we still need to encourage people to vaccinate. But I mean, that is a good indicator, how we're doing in this region. So we're doing better than most countries, and we're clearly doing much better than our neighbors in the Deep South.
Yeah. Quincy, I checked last week. The rate is, I think, over 66% in the city of Quincy itself. So it's doing very well also.
Yeah, absolutely, it's doing very well. And you got like over 90% vaccination rate for the senior population. The challenge, again, is the younger end of the bracket. You got that, not just teenagers, but people in their 20s and 30s, especially in the 20s, need to get vaccinated. And that's a little bit slower. And this unfortunately, not the entire state isn't equal vaccination. Quincy's doing really well in the 60s, but you get to places like Lawrence, which are trying to get to 50, and you see Boston, who just barely got to 60. So there's some challenges in some of the rural areas in Western Mass are a little slow, but they're getting there. And thus, not surprising, contained areas like the islands, have a very high vaccination rate. Montevideo and Nantucket, they both have high vaccination because they're in a contained place. And Cape Cod, despite what you see in Provincetown, Cape Cod has a strong vaccination rate because senior population plus tourism is crucial. So having your workers vaccinated is essential.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're definitely not out of this yet, unfortunately.
Well, we'll see. I mean, the State House opening is actually now going to be somewhat dependent on the Delta variant. Again, I remind folks, if your office is basically your closet, welcome to the State House. That is the level of ventilation and no window access that some of these offices have. And some offices are literally just a plywood box of like a 10 by 10 square with an extra chair. So it isn't like the glamour of Congress, folks. Believe me. I've had a fun office where my first office was basically everyone walking past me because I was in the middle of everybody else.
The hallway office.
It basically sums it up. I mean, it wasn't like a door or not really great partitions in the middle of the action. So, my staff, and I, we all sit very close together in a small contained space with no HAV system. And we don't have a HVAC system. It's still blowing fans off of water pipes.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it's
It's
very
not a circulatory
primitive to
system.
say the least. Yeah.
Yeah, not circulatory system whatsoever. So I mean, there's you get to the middle part of the building, it gets worse.
Hmm.
So with this Delta variant, we don't know who's coming and going. We opened the building up to the public. It is a historical building,
Hmm.
a tourist site, and a museum. So it is not just State House employees. It's not just people doing the State House, but probably half the building will be just people walking in the door,
Hmm.
mostly tourists and sometimes students. And it's not like other places. People think, oh, you can just limit it to employees. Like you go to one Ashburn Place, it's people, there's the public employees and people doing business there. And most of it can be done online now. So you
Great.
can actually, try to get more stuff on the internet to create a reduced number of foot traffic of people coming in.
Yep.
State House isn't like that.
Yeah. And you don't know people's vaccination status, and you can't ask. So there's the issue.
Yeah, and the Delta variant really is scary. When I tell you guys that we're working in basic closets, no ventilation. The Delta variant is very scary because you're right. We don't know who comes in. We don't know if they're vaccinated. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Reach out to you, Tacky, of course.
617-722-2014, 617-722-2001. Mash a button and leave a voicemail of anybody. We're still working remotely. Hopefully we'll be back in the fall in some hybrid, maybe format. More conversations to come.
Okay.
You can email me at tacky.chan@mahouse.gov, tacky.chan@mahouse.gov. I am now taking a whole ton of testimony from people. We're already into, I think, hearing like 9 in the committee so far.
Wow. Okay.
I'm losing count. You can actually watch my hearings at State Representative Tacky Chan Facebook. It's on Facebook Live. You like miss seeing me here. You can see me there. We put up some useful information and and some activities I've been involved in, and now we're streaming our public hearings on there during this virtual period we're still living in, and TackyChan.org. We put up useful information on there as well. You can search that website for stuff before calling my office, and maybe save you some time.
Okay. Sounds good. Really nice to see you, and we'll see how long your hair grows next time.
Well, we could start that game again that we did all through COVID about tacky hair growth, when it was filling up half the screen.
Tacky in the 70s, right? The 70s do. All right. Thanks a lot, Tacky. Good to talk to you.
Good talk to you. Talk to you soon.